1981 saw 25 national and 5 world records broken on an 8-race tour that attracted close to 2 million spectators, but will forever be remembered as the season the sport lost Bill Muncy, its winningest, best known, most charismatic personality. Dean Chenoweth driving Miss Budweiser garnered most of the glory. The duo won 6 races, including the Gold Cup on Seattle's Lake Washington, the World Cup in Acapulco, and the Silver Cup in Detroit, and points title for owner Bernie Little. Not since 1974 had one boat captured the Gold Cup, the World Championship Regatta, and the National High Points crown in the same year. The level of competition improved as the season progressed. The year's high watermark was undoubtedly reached during the championship finale of the Columbia Cup at Tri-Cities, Washington. Chenoweth and Hanauer exited the final turn side by side and staged an incredible drag race down to the wire before Hanauer took the checkered flag by a whisker. The win signaled a spectacular comeback for Hanauer, whose boat had erupted in flames after the final heat of the previous race in Evansville, Indiana. Speeds were respectively high in 1981. At the Seattle Gold Cup, the top 6 qualifiers collectively averaged an unprecedented 130 miles per hour. The fastest competitive lap of the year was Muncy's 133.730 on the first lap of the Tri-Cities finale. Rookie John Walters pushed the pay-and-pack turbine craft to a qualification record of 131.627 for the 2-mile distance on the Ohio River at Evansville. And in Detroit, Miss Budweiser raised a 3-mile qualifying standard to 138.639. "19 Thunderboats scored points in 1981, the largest contingent to do so since 1974. The Squire Shot team had to go with 2 hulls when their Columbia Cup winner was destroyed in a September test run on Lake Washington.
Shit! Oh my God!
Hanauer was only slightly injured. Owner Bob Stile passed up the next race on San Diego's Mission Bay, but reappeared at the season-ending Acapulco event with the former Miss Circus Circus hull of 1979. 3 months prior to his death, Bill Muncy scored the 62nd and final victory of his career at Evansville, a race that he had helped to promote. On the hot, fiercely humid day, the Blue Blaster hull claimed its 24th first-place trophy since being launched in 1977. The world's most victorious driver and the most victorious boat had problems earlier in the season. Everything was sorted out at Evansville as the team set a world 30-mile race record of 112.63 miles per hour in the process.
Oh man, that was a swinger, wasn't it? It was a barn burner. I don't know what the average speeds were, but they had to be an awful lot of fun for those who were watching. I was having a marvelous time driving it, and we've just proven the original theory when we started the tour this year, that we knew that the Budweiser was odds-on, had to be with all that extra power, that nobody could really beat him. And that, on the other hand, we, the Alice Van Lines, chose to be persistent and stay after him, and it cost us an awful lot to do that. We gave up 3 good second-place finishes on the tour by keeping after him, and we continued to break. It was us that we were doing the braking. And on the other hand, today he was the one that broke.
Años de edad, que ha quedado en segundo lugar en esta primer prueba de los 5 más rápidos. Congratulations, Bill.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
The 81 season was one race too long for Bill and his famous Blue Blaster. It ended tragically on Sunday, October 18th in Acapulco. After disappointing second and fourth place finishes in heats 1B and 2B, Muncy was determined not to end the season with another loss in the final. In a final attempt to end his frustration and beat the awesome Griffin-powered Miss Budweiser, Muncy wired one of his patented bonsai starts coming from the outside, and indeed was leading on the backstretch of the first lap. The horrified crowd watched as the Atlas became airborne and flipped. Its legendary driver was mortally injured.
Que aquí rescataban, que aquí traían para prestarle la atención inmediata. El destrozo, que quedaron destrozadas las otras dos lanchas.
Two other drivers suffered injuries in the incident. Chip Hanauer's Squire shop struck the wreckage of Muncie's stricken craft, and Milner Irvin was thrown from Miss Madison when he hooked his boat to avoid doing the same. Bill Muncie had died the way he lived, racing out front.
I never expected to be a professional racing person. I'm a marketing man by choice and by education. And I graduated from General Motors Institute of Technology, and I did my postgraduate work at Rollins in Winter Park, Florida. The racing just seemed to end up being a fun thing. I was doing that as an appendage to some of the marketing responsibilities I've had in my career. It worked just beautifully, and gosh, I've been with Atlas Van Lines and out of Evansville now for 12 years. How can you think about getting out when all these neat things are happening? You know, there's a lot of exciting things happening in our sport.
Different strategy in the final heat?
Try to get out in front and improve my position. I think that would be a good idea. But you know what was a neat thing about my crew? In all of this, they never lost their sense of humor. I think that's just super.
The season champion, Miss Budweiser, started 23 heats during 1981, finished 22, won 21, and finished second once. Only at Evansville did the beer wagon's race day conclude at the end of a tow rope. The Bud blew a connecting rod in its Rolls-Royce Griffin engine while leading Atlas and Squire Shop on the final lap of the race. The turbine-powered pay-and-pack showed flashes of brilliance, but could finish only 10 of 16 heats. At Acapulco, the craft had trouble in the rough water and almost flipped during Heat 2B. The pack's best performance was a solid second, 1.5 rooster tails astern of Miss Budweiser in the final heat of the Gold Cup. The community-owned Miss Madison from Madison, Indiana, had its best season in 10 years. Driver Milner Irvin took second place in high points and finished runner-up at his hometown Madison Regatta on the Ohio River. A model of consistency, Irvin finished at the top of the reliability chart with 23 heats started and 23 heats finished. The only sour note was sounded at Acapulco, when Irvin was hurt and the boat sustained extensive but repairable damage in that ill-fated final heat. A bumper crop of rookies made the goings interesting in '81. Freshman Scott Pierce made the greatest impression. He finished fourth nationally with Bill Worster's U8. Pierce completed 22 of 23 heats entered and tied down a second place in the Silver Cup. Several new Thunderboat teams debuted during 1981. The Keith Trowbridge-owned Captain Resorts pulled down a 7th place in the national standings, with Bobby Howard, Steve Reynolds, and Ron Snyder serving as drivers. First-time owner Pat O'Day, who had previously sponsored several Unlimiteds, entered the fray with Miss KYYX. O'Day made headlines when he hired Brenda Jones to be the first female driver in the sport since before World War II. Never in history was thunderboating's role as a development category more dramatically underscored. Cabovers, conventionals, four-point, and tunnel hulls. Rolls-Royce Merlin, Rolls-Royce Griffin, turbine, fuel-injected Merlin, Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, and turbocharged and supercharged Allison engines. Adding to the show in 1981 was Jack Schaefer Jr. in Ken Thompson's Thousand Trails. Ron Snyder drove Miss Kentuckiana Paving, owned by Graham Heath and Bill Cantrell. Al Lecter's Spirit of the Air Force. Carol Kern's automotive-powered U-5 raced as the Candyman and the Machine. Tom Martin in Bob Warner's Rent-It Shops. Bob Mashmet drove the Tempest, owned by Chuck Hickling. Bob Miller's U-29 raced as KISW's Miss Rock. Buck Thornton in Don Arono's Arono Unlimited. And Steve LaCava's Kawaguchi Travel Service.